Now let's cross over to Asanda for our second question.
And our next question is from Angela. How are you doing, Angela?
I'm good, and yourself?
I'm very good, thank you. Angela, how's natural science treating you?
You know, natural science really isn't that bad. It's quite interesting, really. I enjoy it, but I wouldn't do it in the future.
What would you do in the future? Like, what kind of career would you go into?
Either law or teaching, maybe.
Teaching, wow. Well, you know, that is a very, very useful career. You know that, hey?
Yes,
like,
since we
people's
are in
lives
shortage
are
of teachers,
in.
yeah?
You've got it covered. Okay, Angela, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and ask your question.
Alright, so how can I sort and organize all the living organisms that I've learnt about so far?
Guys, can you please help Angela out there?
Many different ways of sorting or classifying living organisms exist. You could look at physical features such as possession of a vertebral column. These organisms do not have a vertebral column and are classified in the group invertebrates. These organisms do have a vertebral column and are classified as vertebrates. Another way you could classify organisms is by looking at what they eat. These organisms are all able to make their own food. They can photosynthesize because they possess chlorophyll. They are classified in the group autotrophs. These organisms cannot make their own food, as they do not possess chlorophyll. They need to get their food from another source. They are known as heterotrophs. In Activity 2, you'll work out a classification system for some organisms based on their diet. The learner will now pause the DVD and attempt the activity. You need to remember that the sorting or classifying of living organisms into groups is a human activity that helps us to better understand the natural world. Let's cross over to Asanda for our final question.
And our last question in the Natural Sciences series is from Alexia. How are you?
I'm very good.
You're very good.
Yes.
Okay. I like to hear that. Now, Alexia, tell me about the kind of careers you're thinking about.
Well, I quite like music and drama, so I've got this dream of writing, composing, and starring in a musical.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to phone up Steve and I'm going to be like, hey, you know, I know you haven't had much of a hit since E.T., but I think I got the next best thing here.
I'm sure he'll be very interested in that. He'll be very interested. Okay, now let's focus here, right?
Yes.
And you've got a question?
Yes.
Go ahead, go.
Are all living organisms interrelated?
Well, are they?
That's a fantastic question. Let's take time to explore if all organisms are interrelated. You have learned over the years that living organisms rely on each other and depend on each other for food. We all rely on green organisms for oxygen. But relying on an organism and being interrelated are two different things. Are we in any way related to plants? Are we related to other animals and to bacteria? Let's look at some discoveries that have been made and then answer the question. In 1823, a Scottish botanist, Robert Brown, observed a small sphere-like structure in every plant cell he examined. He called this structure that he had observed the nucleus of the cell. Theodor Schwann was a German zoologist who was studying animal cells under the microscope, at the same time that Brown was analyzing plant cells. In 1839, Schwann reported that all animal cells have a nucleus. He stated that the cell was the basic unit of all life, plant and animal. In 1855, another German scientist, Rudolf Virchow, proposed the idea that cells always multiply by cell division. New cells come from pre-existing living cells. From the work of Watson, Crick, and many other scientists, we know that DNA is the same in plants, animals, and even in primitive bacteria. Although the amount of DNA varies and the DNA codes for different proteins, all DNA is the same structure and works in the same way to code for cell instructions. Some of the DNA codes for proteins in bacteria is identical to the DNA codes for the same proteins in our cells. Based on this evidence, scientists believe that all life on Earth is interrelated. Find pictures which represent the characteristics of living things. Make a collage or a poster which conveys the meaning that I am alive. A learner will now pause the DVD and attempt the activity. It's quite humbling to think or to realize that you're related to every living thing on the planet. That's all we have time for in today's lesson, but before we cap it, let's have a short recap. All living things possess certain characteristics that allow them to be classified as living. However, the greatest unifying element among all living things is possession of the molecule DNA. All living things, irrespective of structure or mode of nutrition, possess deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA in short. That's all we have time for in this lesson. Until next time, from me, your host Aubrey, have a good one.
Well, guys, that's it. The end of Natural Sciences. I hope you guys all had a lot of fun with us. You learned a lot. Thank you to our teachers. Thank you to everybody who asked questions. Alexia, you've been great. Mwah. Do you have anything to say before we go, though?
I just think living organisms are so diverse, and I find it fascinating and incredible that we all rely on one another to survive on this planet.
It really is awesome.
Very interesting.
It really is awesome. But hey, it's time for us to really say goodbye now.
Okay.
Guys, see you around.
Bye.